everybody, what's happening? I'm Tommy, and you are on the lifeboat. It is Thursday, I believe. Hope you're having a hell of a day. Jane Aldrich, good to see you. Shannon Smith, what's happening? Hey, Aunt KK, it's Karen Pooley. Johnny Scoville's in the house. Allison Metcalf Palumbo, good to see you. Glad that you're here. Let's see. Deanna Downey, what's happening? Marmelo, good to see you. Cindy Plumley, good to see you. How are you? Doobie, hope you're doing well. This, people, is the story that's a bummer. But you know something? This is not far off from what we're talking about, right? Been talking about the music industry and what a friggin' pit it is. Subi, how are you? Deaudrey Gore, good to see you. Marissa Robertson, Rose Toes. Johan Holly. Johan. Yeah, hi to you too. Joanne, good to see you. And I think it's Marissa Robertson, although Reese would like to say Marisa. I don't know. Either way on that. Go either way on that. So here's the deal. This is a guy from One Direction. If you're familiar with this band, if you're not, and I wasn't, just keep it real. I had no clue who this band was, but they are another one of those bands that was put together, right, to be a band. Armine, good to see you. Joe D, how are you? Howdy. Monica, glad you're here. Alison Metcalf Palumbo says, may I ask for prayers, good vibes, good juju for my oldest stepdaughter and her oldest daughter, 14, soon to be 15. Girl, teens are hard, no question. Nestwick Milk, good to see you. So they put this band together. Simon Cowell had a lot to do with it. They auditioned all of these boys and brought them together, hey, Angie Mo, to put together a band. And that band was One Direction. They had a crap load of hits. But as you start to dive into this, what you find from this cat, Liam, he's a Brit. And what you find is that in interviews that he has done, he said to protect these kids from the world, right? To protect these kids from what happens to so many artists in the industry. The way that they did that is as they would tour and as they would go around the world, they would lock these guys in their room. Totally Jersey, good to see you. Literally lock these guys in their room. That way they're not going downtown. There aren't girls attacking them. All of the things that you think might go wrong. This is an easy thing. If you just lock people in a room the size of a prison cell, they're not going to go out and get in that kind of trouble. Much love from Canada. Karen Allen, I'll tell you something. There's going to be a show I'm going to be doing tonight. It's got a big Canada tie-in. You probably know what it is. But great show coming up tonight. Anka, how are you? Love from the UK. So sad when such a young person dies. Yeah. And, right, one of your countrymen. This is going to be a Here from Sean Atwood's program. Hey, Batters, glad that you're here. You know something? You're here on a good day, people. We're going to do something today that you've never seen me do before on the lifeboat. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to bring up a picture. I don't do this. I'm going to bring up a picture, and I'm going to show you some stuff from the hotel room, because if you're not a junkie, I'm sorry, but if you're not a drug addict, the pictures that are leaking out of his room aren't going to make a whole lot of sense to you. To somebody like me, they tell a tale, and I'm going to show you guys that here in a minute. Jody says, what I want to know is why the hell did the hotel not lock him in a room until the police came? Why did they put him back in his room where he had access to a balcony? Well, and I'll tell you something else. According to the Postmortem, and I'm not trying to bum anybody out. If this is going to bum you out, maybe you ought to leave. This is I'm tossing you out a trigger warning right now, okay? Because this is a subject where we're talking about someone who unalived themselves, right? Epstein themselves. When that happens, right? This isn't pleasant. But when somebody jumps to their demise, there are things that happen to every person that does that. They're predictable as you could possibly imagine, because we as people do things when we fall through the air. It is instinctual to the point where it's damn near impossible not to do it, right? If you're a skier, you jump off a cliff, they say rolling up the windows, right? Your arms start doing this number. If you drop from a high enough point, and I'm telling you, I spent 25 years skiing constantly, and to try to break yourself of habits that are ingrained into you is almost impossible. Our guy would have done this, right? Liam would have done things instinctually because the ground was coming up. It's just what your body does. And he didn't do any of them. Yeah, Joe D says, and TMZ had the gall to post a photo of his deceased body. And you know what? They paid a crap load of money for that picture, which is even more disturbing. I have no intention of showing that to you. The reason that I'm going to show you a picture here today is because a lot of the stuff that we're going to be looking at, right, may not make sense to a lot of people, right? Now, let's see here. Let's give this a try. All right, people. This right here is the hotel room, a photo from the hotel room, right? And we can see this is Dove soap, right? We got a green cigarette lighter here. This is an empty pill bottle. And you know what? Let me go back here just real quickly and do this because it's going to buy us a little bit more room. Huh? How about that? So let's go back here real quick. All right. Do you see this tin foil right here? Right? And there are black stains on this tin foil. That is where a chemical substance was put. Then they light underneath the bottom. This is how I spent the vast majority of my life consuming tar H. It is done off a tin foil exactly like that. So is crystal. Is done very often the same way. If you do not have another way to do it, tin foil is sort of the catch-all. People are getting away from it because it is now rumored that this does serious brain damage when you spend a lot of time breathing in the chemicals that come off of foil. So a lot of people are starting to cut down on it, but there are some things here that are kind of dead giveaways of something else, honestly. So what is on this? Well, the argument could be made that chances are he's smoking an opioid of some kind. That's usually what is, especially because of other things that they found in the room. However, they found a lot of white powder, right? They found an awful lot of white powder. And you'll see right up here, you see that thing? There are places, if you see from other photos, it looks like almost where a bindle was torn open, right? You see that there were a lot of this white powder stuff all over the place. Do you see this right here? That's the top of a soda can, right? Why would the top of a soda can be blackened and nasty? Well, very often people take the Bolivian marching powder. Keep in mind he's in Argentina. They take yayo, right? They take blow, and they cook it up to turn it into a smokable version of the drug. This right here, people, this tube right here that I am now clicked on, right? That right there is tin foil. I've done exactly what that is. I can't tell you how many times in my life. That is wrapping tin foil around a pencil or a pen and then taking one end of it to put the rock of white in there. When you smoke rock blow, when you smoke crack, cigarette lighters go out very, very quickly, right? Because you spend a lot of time putting fire to it, and lighters die really quickly. This right down here, this is a one of those I can't remember what they're called, tea light candles or something along those lines, but they come in 12 packs, and they're small little candles that sit in a little metal holder, and they're very often used to put underneath those wax things that are going to burn and smell lovely. Obviously, that was being used to also do stuff like heat this foil or cook this, right? But there's a lot of white powder there. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that when this stuff gets tested, it's going to be blow. The other thing that is in the room that they have released to the public is clonazepam, right? That's Klonopin. And they said it's an anti-seizure medication. Here in this country, this is most often used as this is a benzo that is given to people for severe anxiety, right? And it is a heavy-duty drug. There was an empty champagne flute that was found in the room, right? There was an empty champagne flute that was found in the room. Michelle Perina, Pieria. Chance this was set up to look like he was a drug addict. You know what? I would absolutely say that if you were trying to make it look like that, this is a pretty good staged scene. Not being a wise ass. I think this is a decent stage scene. The broken TV, right? A flute of champagne that was on the floor near the TV. there was a whiskey bottle that apparently made the fall with him. Allegedly, that's what they're saying, that a whiskey bottle made the fall with him. The problem with thinking that this was a complete setup, because absolutely it looks like I said, hey, Seventh, hey, Renee, if you were trying to set it up like that, this wouldn't be necessarily a bad way to do it. But here's where you're going to run into problems. There is a mountain of video and evidence out there of this Liam fella being very open and honest about the struggles he's had with substances, alcohol being a key one. I'll tell you something right now, people. Klonopin is a very, very strong drug. I'm not a doctor. I'm a drug addict. This is a drug that will make you black out. If you mix this drug with alcohol, you will do stupid things. I mean, this is one of those things that should never be mixed with alcohol, period. Benzos in general, 2 respiratory depressants, right? Don't mix 2 respiratory depressants. This kills people all the time. But just as importantly, when you mix a benzo with booze, you'll hear people in the recovery community say 1 + 1 = 3, right? And what they mean quite simply is that you're not going to multiply, hey, Lumen, you're not going to multiply the strength of the pill doubling it by drinking a beer. You're going to triple it by drinking a beer. And if you're having 4 or 5 drinks and you're taking one of these, the night is going to be forgotten. Of this, I promise you. Sally D says, my son is a meth addict. Been to prison for theft for 1.5 years. He got out, got clean, then thrown in jail for 124 for attempted unaliving somebody. We never stopped loving him. He insisted, didn't do it. Found not guilty. Well, how about that? How about that? And you know something, Sally D? The whole time I was reading that, I was getting more uncomfortable and more uncomfortable. Boy, that last sentence really. If you got out of prison, right? You better keep your nose hellaciously clean, because we are the usual suspects, right? If somebody were to become unalived in the area of Arizona that I live in, I've never unalived anybody. It's not something that's in my jacket. I don't have violence in my history. Nevertheless, they're going to run and see how many felons do we have in this general area, and let's go pay all of them a visit. I'm not kidding. This is how it goes down. So it's a very difficult thing. I am glad to hear that your boy was found not guilty. That is fantastic news. D. Audrey Gore says, I take Klonopin as prescribed. It doesn't seem all that strong to me. Anxiety is still a beast. Well, I'm going to guess. I could be wrong. But, I'm not a doctor. I'm a drug addict. But more often than not, people progress to Klonopin. It's kind of a rare thing that somebody walks into a doctor's office and the doctor says, we're going to put you on clonazepam day 1. More often than not, they're going to start with a less intense benzo, something like Ativan, which is lorazepam, or alprazolam, which would be Xanax. And a lot of people start out with Xanax. And when they do, they're starting them out with like 0.05 milligrams of Xanax. And then they walk them up, because eventually, like everything else, you're going to start building a tolerance to this, right? I lost days on benzos and alcohol, had to be told where I'd been by others and had no clue what I'd been up to. It's a savage mixture. Thank you, Lemon Tree, for your honesty. Hey, Goddess 110, welcome to the boat. I absolutely know so many stories like this, and I can tell stories from my past and my abuse of benzos and alcohol that I promise you will have all of you laughing, right? I can tell you some really funny stories of really stupid things, right, that I did under the influence of benzos and alcohol. There was one case in particular where when I woke up in the morning, my front door to my apartment was wide open. I was asleep on the couch. In front of me on the table, I had taken all of my money, hundreds, 50s, 20s, 10s, 5s, once, and had it completely organized. If you walked by my door, you would have seen, I don't know what, it wasn't a lot of money, $800 or $900 or so. It wasn't a ton of money, but in my drunken state, I figured that this stuff had to be organized. Front door was wide open, and I couldn't find my significant other, who had locked the bedroom door. When I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, what's going on? What the hell happened out here?" She said, "You happened out there, and we're being evicted." I drove the sob that I had up to the front door of my apartment, right? But my apartment was not like I had to go up a walking path around a tree. But I parked my car directly in front of my front door, got out and walked inside. We got evicted, and there was some police activity. These drugs, when mixed with alcohol, can turn you into an absolute babbling moron. You know something? It really is. I'm so bummed out about this. I'm a big music head and have always loved One Direction. So heartbreaking. You know, it's also just a really, really young guy that just seemed to have so much promise, right? And by all accounts, this is not a dude that was riding auto-tune to stardom. This was a guy with a crap load of talent, right? There are a lot of people that sort of get manufactured into a star because of what they look like. This cat was a very talented individual. By all accounts, he had an amazing voice, pitch perfect kind of stuff. And it's just, you know, I've been watching interviews of him now for a day and a half, and he talks so openly and so honestly about his demons. And there's an interview where he talks about hitting rock bottom, and he said, I don't know if I'm there yet, right? But you're never going to see it. And it's heartbreaking when you look back on things like this. It's always so hard, man. Always so hard. It really is. They started me out on Xanax, says Johnny. 1.5 milligram 3 times a day. Pretty fast, I got them to take me up to 1.5, 3 times a day. That's the way it usually goes. That's the way it usually goes. And all of a sudden, you're taking bars, right? And if you're not familiar with these substances, they usually start out in pills that look like little footballs, right, in shape. And they're very often blue or yellow or whatever. And the stuff that comes out of Mexico, which a lot of it hits the U.S., is not called Klonopin. It's called I'm not going to be able to remember what they used to sell it under the name Rivotril. That's what they called it, Rivotril. And it's just one of those things that cause a lot of accidents. It causes a lot of people to lose things. Really, really sad. Nesquik Milk says, way too young. I was not expecting to be grieving a One Direction member death this early on. Yeah, right? Right? Like this is one of those bands where you shouldn't feel like in your lifetime, right? We're all a little bit older around here. Jody says, I feel like all the young kids who got famous don't end well. Liam, Brittany, Justin, right? B, Lindsay, Lohan, the list goes on and on. Well, you know what? A lot of you met me because I started talking about what's going on with P. Diddy. And there are people, I'll get emails that go, who cares? What's the big deal? This is the big deal. This is the big deal. Because of how this industry runs, people are thrown away, right? This kid's a product. And when the product gets to a point where all of a sudden they're kind of a pain in the ass, then they cut them loose, right? And then there's nobody that cares anymore. Kind of goes from it's a depressing concept. It really is. If you're just getting here, this is what the inside of Liam's hotel room looked like. There's obviously this is a ton of evidence of drugs being consumed, right? Or allegedly drugs being consumed in the room. Certainly over here with what's going on this. So what is this if it's not, right? If he's not smoking, a lot of times people can consume rock blow and do it on tin foil, or they can do it on a tin can like people used to with weed, but you got to dump a bunch of ash. It's a difficult substance to burn without the proper equipment. So very often they'll mix it with I'm not going to tell you what they mix it with. They mix it with the ingredients to make this stuff and then kind of just put the paste onto tin foil and hit it that way. This just shows an awful lot of use of the powder. They did say the room had packets of Klonopin, packets. I've never been to Argentina, right? However, I've been to places south of the border often where you can walk into a pharmacy and buy all of the Tafil, right? This is what they call Xanax. or Rivotril or whatever. There's a different name for all of it. But if you know the name, if you say clonazepam, they're going to sell that crap to you over the counter. It's just not considered all that big a deal. And it's a tourist industry of people that take buses across the Mexican border so that they can buy their pills for pennies on the dollar. I'm not saying these are drug users. Very often, these are the elderly who are buying prescriptions that they need for whatever. It could be a statin drug. It could be whatever. But it's a drug that in the United States is going to cost them 10 times what they're paying down there. So who can blame them, right? Of late, unfortunately, recently, some of these packets of drugs have actually tested positive for fent and other ugly drugs. And it's a pretty frightening concept that even among Tommy, stupid question, but what is the purpose of using blow this way? So the reason to use it this way is if you're somebody that's been doing this stuff for a long time, right? You get to a point where you'll hear most people who are addicts, and if there's any who feel like sharing in the chat, feel free. But as I abused this drug, the white stuff, I abused it when in my earlier days. I abused the hell out of it. And the way it works with this stuff is most people will say to you, I snorted it until the first time I smoked it. And then I never snorted it again, because you're going to get way, way higher off of smoking it and a hell of a lot faster than you're ever going to get it doing it nasally. You have to understand that huffing it, which is really what you're doing when you're sniffing that stuff up your nose, right? The Dove soap, yeah, I'll get to that, DeAudrey Gore. But most people who smoke it will say to you, I smoked it until the very first time that I shot it, right? At which point I never again had any desire to do the stuff. And it's just a stronger way of doing the substance, right? Burning it is going to be a hell of a lot stronger every single time than you're ever going to get if you're sniffing the stuff up your nose. The idea with inhaling is that the mucous membranes, the stuff is going to go into the mucous membranes, and then that's going to get into the bloodstream. This is not the most effective way to do a substance, right? The lungs, the fastest way that you're going to get this stuff in, and most people, the first time that they do this stuff, right? Back in the 80s, that people would say, I was addicted the very first time I ever did it, right? Boom. First time I ever did it. And for a lot of people, it's that way because the punch of this stuff, it's not like sniffing it. It's not like where you get that, you got to get that happy buzz and you get the drip and that goes on for 15, 20 minutes and you kind of come down. This is a rocket ship straight up. And people it's wildly, wildly buzzed. Unfortunately, all they want to do is the next hit, right? That's all that they want to do. And it becomes really out of control with how fast people can spend an entire house, right? Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to this too. Absolutely a lot of truth to this. So he says, I've noticed mainly the quality of it. I've done it every way possible, but I've had stuff where a key bump made you feel like you were going to die. And a key bump literally is when you take a car key or a house key and you kind of dip it into the bag where it's already crushed up and kind of powdery, and you just take that small amount like you're using the key as a shovel to put it directly under your nose. And a key bump is the kind of thing you might do before walking into a party where nobody there is going to be doing blow. Right? And they sell little devices that actually make a key bump for you. That you can go out. They call them bullets. Or there's some that just have a spoon or whatever. But this is absolutely a fact. And the really, really good crap, snorting it's going to get you really high. But if you take that good crap and you cook it, right, what that stuff is going to do to you, or if you take that and just put it directly into a vein. Right. And most people who start, speedballs are one of those things that will destroy your veins in about a month, because you just end up doing so much more than you would ever. I mean, if you're doing tar, you're going to stick yourself twice a day. You start doing speedballs, you're sticking yourself every 20 minutes. Sweetie Todd, great to see you. Literally, that's how it happens. People continue to shoot until they run out of money. It's a terrible, terrible substance. Honestly, it is. Now, I know lawyers. I know a group of lawyers from the town that I used to live in, and they all sniff the stuff. I'm telling you. I mean, they all sniff the stuff. They don't do it every day, but I went to parties where it was brought out, and it was amazing because one of the parties I was at, I swear to you, this is the truth, but a woman who prosecuted me and a judge who sentenced me, not to federal stuff, but to state stuff, were at this party. Now, it wasn't like they weren't dumping it out on the kitchen table, but I knew within a couple of minutes of being there that everybody was sniffing blow. And the girl that I was with at the time said to me, wow, I wonder if anyone's going to offer us any of this. It was really, I mean, it was over the top. And I thought, these are the people that sent me to prison. It's never occurred to me to snort my meds. DeAudrey Gore, that is a really good thing. You know, that is a really good thing. Johnny, the truth of the matter is that this stuff is going away. Honestly, this in our supply chain, this stuff's going away. It's a very labor-intensive process to make blow. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about a drug kingpin that allegedly was going down to South America to buy the paste, because the paste you can buy for almost nothing. And he was actually finishing the process himself of making blow to the tune of about 60 tons a year. That's a hell of a lot of blow. And we'll talk about that tonight. But it's this is a substance that, like so many others, is going away. Even the H. Is it still on our streets? Yeah. But a great deal of it that's on the street has absolutely nothing in it that makes it H. Right? They're making Fugazi. They're making stuff that looks like, smells like, and does the same thing, but it is not the same thing. I remember buying stuff on the internet. And I'm not talking about Silk Road. I'm not talking about, dark web. I'm not talking about any of that crap. I'm talking about a time where people were buying stuff like Procaine, or there was like 3 or 4 different types of synthetic blow that they were selling. And does exactly what the old stuff did. Exactly. Numbs you out, gets you, the same buzz for the same period of time. Oddly enough, you could take it and throw it into a glass bubbler like people use to puff meth out of, and it would puddle. Very, very unusual, but it is made in China. And there's no point whatsoever in taking the time to grow 400,000 acres, right, of coca leaves when they can crank this stuff out in a lab and people are going to pay the same amount of money for it. They're going to pay the same amount of money for it. And then what they're going to do is they're going to start dumping some of that opioid in it, right? Maybe not a lot. Why? Well, because it's right now one of the most addictive substances on earth, right? One of the most addictive substances on earth, right? Johnny, you're right. There are a lot of people that use this stuff on the daily basis. However, honestly, the supply of the stuff that was around in the 80s, it's just not the way it was. It really isn't. This is the reason, and I'm skipping shows here. But tonight, when I talk about this guy that's on the run, this kingpin, he wasn't going down there to do that and make the stuff because you get a way better deal that way. It's because people aren't doing it, right? The huge shipments that used to happen in the 80s, why would you do that? If it's going to cost you whatever, pick a number. It's going to cost you $2,000 a key to make. And you can buy the fake stuff for $200 a key. Why would you have all of the labor-intensive stuff that people can come in and spray with pesticides, or a hurricane can come in and destroy the entire crop? All of these crazy things that can happen because it's a crop. There's not much point. To the dealer, they don't care that you really preferred the stuff that was real. I promise you. The people addicted to Fent are saying, what do you mean there's no more H? I deal with these people every day on the boat, every day. People in their 60s that for 25 years did H every single day, and now that's not an option. They're addicted to it. This is a lifetime disease, and their substance of choice has been replaced. It's a terrifying thing, but I do shows on this all the time. Our drug supply in this country is no longer safe. Now, with this particular individual, the question was there any significance to the soap? And I'll tell you this, very often it's a way that people use to bring stuff on airplanes. Now, bringing anything on an airplane to South America is a really stupid idea, right? Especially the stuff that seems to be all over the tables, because you could get Klonopin very easily down there. You also would have no problem at all getting blow in that country. It seems odd that someone would want to bring it. Maybe it was because when he's leaving to go wherever he's about to go, he intends to. Very often what people do is they cut a bar of soap in half, right? Then you take the thing open and you cut the inside of it out. Then you put the crap back together and you get it wet. And you just sort of do the finger number, and it's super, super easy to take a bar of soap and put stuff inside it. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm taking a guess, and I'm telling you right now it's a guess, right? That's it. It's a guess. But it is done. That's how people in the joint hide crap in their cells inside soap boxes because they think they're slick. But they'll come in and cut your soap in half. They're not too worried about it. If you're really in the crosshairs, you're screwed. I took car. Oh my goodness. Brown Bombers. Do I have anybody here that's done time? Carbazepine. It's oxycarbazepine, right? If I'm not mistaken, there should be an oxy in front of the CRBAM. Oxycarbazepine is a drug that they still write inside the federal prison system. It is the drug of choice for people who abused downers on the street, because there's nothing in there that's even close. They don't give that stuff out, but those are called Brown Bombers, and they go for about $1 a piece. Clonazepam, right? We talked about that. Diazepam is Valium. First drug they ever advertised. You know that? No joke. Prior to that, they had never been an ad campaign for a drug. And guess what? There never should have been. If drugs come to you because a doctor writes you a prescription for it, who's the ad running for? Is it running for the doctor? No. It doesn't say on those ads, if you're a doctor, right? None of that crap. It's not how it goes down. No, they're advertising to the consumer who sits on the couch and goes, you know what? My legs do this at night all the time. They really do. I need Lyrica. Now you walk into a doctor's office, and instead of saying, you know what, doc, at night when I lay in bed, I feel like I can't stop my legs. Drives my wife nuts, but my legs just keep going. I don't know. And he would say restless leg syndrome. There's a couple of stuff out there. No, now you walk in and go, hey, I got restless leg syndrome. I need Lyrica. And while you're at it, write me a prescription for, pick your favorite pecker pill. Sorry. What is that stuff called? Anyway, throw in something for erectile dysfunction. I cannot think of the name of that drug right now to save my life. But Deaudrey Gore says, Mother's Little Helper. Janet Smith says, Valium, Mommy's Little Helper. There was a song called Mother's Little Helper, and it is an amazing tune by the Rolling Stones. And Viagra. Thank you, Ivy's mama. You walk in and you go and throw in some Viagra. And, why? Do you have erectile dysfunction? No, but the idea of it working even better sounds like fun, right? I've been watching all the ads. Looks like a good time. Throw that in there, right? And by the way, I'm about 60 pounds overweight. What's that stuff that they give for diabetics? This is how it goes down now. You understand? Now you walk into a doctor's office and you got a list of crap that you want to see that doctor write you a prescription for, right? Something wrong with that, right? I think there's 196 countries, right? Isn't that? I mean, there's always a couple that are trying to become countries or whatever. But hey, Shelly, good to see you, man. Stephanie, hey, how are you? But we're right in that like 190 something. Of all of those countries, us here in the U.S., and my understanding is New Zealand. I'm not sure if New Zealand still does it, because the last time I did a show on this was like a year ago. Stephanie A says, if you order anything from an Indian pharmacy, they throw in free Viagra of your choice, or a free erectile dysfunction pill of your choice. Well, isn't that kind? I mean, you can't beat that with a stick. They just kind of assume that everybody needs that. Everybody doesn't need that. Everybody doesn't need that. And it does some stuff to your heart, right? I mean, if you understand how this stuff works, right? Not trying to turn this into a show that's going to get demonetized. But the way you get an erection is by forcing blood into that rascal, right? And they mess with the heart to make sure that more blood gets pumped into that fun erogenous zone. Should we be handing this stuff out like cotton candy? Because I'll tell you something. There was a film called Limitless. You guys familiar with this movie? Right? It had that actor in it. What's his name? He was in The Hangover. Ridiculously attractive cat, right? Every girl in the world loves him. Did a duet with Lady Gaga. Anyway, that cat. You familiar with the movie Limitless? After that movie came out, the demand for Bradley Cooper. Thank you, Abdazzle. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, Limitless with Bradley Cooper. When that film came out, the demand for Adderall went through the roof. People will tell you that that's Adderall, man. You take that stuff and instantly near. By the way, this is BS. But no joke, you can actually track it. That movie created more of a demand for the new Mother's Little Helper, right? As opposed to something that just chilled them out. Now it turns them into Supermom, right? Now they're running around and they're checking stuff. And, I vacuumed. We remember something about Mary? She's got the couch up. She's vacuuming underneath it. It's rugged, man. Heart pills and Viagra mix in a way that occasionally gets paramedics involved. That is a fact. That is a fact. But this is a problem. This is a problem. Is it my imagination or is this a friggin' problem? And I'll tell you something. We get back to again and again and again and again. How do you get through this industry? Well, you drug the crap out of yourself, don't you? Right? That's what you do. Magda. Thank you, Abdazzle. It was Magda. Funny how kids all get diagnosed with ADHD and given speed, says Franklin MC. I'll tell you something, man. My son was given ADHD medication. And if you had any idea how I was a junkie at the time, right? I knew exactly what those pills did. It wasn't my brand. I like to go in the opposite direction, but I was absolutely sickened. And unfortunately, it was not something that I could do anything about. Truthfully, not something I could do anything about. I hope to be doing stuff with Sean on a fairly regular basis. I've been talking to Shane, and you'll be seeing more of me over there for sure. And you know what? I love the audience, man. It's such a great crowd. It really is. Could be baking soda to make the big C. Apparently, H is very hard to get in Argentina, and the Bolivian marching powder is extremely stepped on. All right. So that is why the person would be trying to rock this up, right? And truthfully, if the blow is awful and you rock it up, you are going to get a better product, right? You don't get as much of it. The people who cook it will say, how much came back? Is a term you hear a lot among the people that abuse that substance. If you have to make it yourself, you buy the powder. And let's say you start with a G. They say, well, how much came back, right? Did you get half of that back? And if it's garbage, you don't get anywhere close to half of that. If it's fire, you can get almost all of it back. Or if you're a dirtbag, the way the 1980s were, then you add some bonding agents so that you can take a zip, right? An OZ, 28 Gs, and turn it into 35 or 40. Because they were using bonding agents. They didn't much care what it did to the end user, right? I got to be honest with you. Drug dealers don't care what happens to the end user. Shannon Smith, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you something. As many of you know, I have 2 kids, and one is not mine by birth. That made it a much more difficult thing for me to exert any kind of influence. Especially at that time, which is really a bummer, man. It really was a bummer. I don't think, by the way, I believe there are kids that need it. I believe that there are kids that need it. I'm not saying that I think that it doesn't exist, because it does, right? It absolutely does. And, but the trouble is that in my son's case, we were shitty parents, right? We had a wildly intelligent kid and we were bad parents. If we were spending a lot more time challenging the kid, we wouldn't have run into the issues that we did. And that's on us. Sucks. It really does. It sucks. But there's not much going back to fix things from the past, right? Acknowledge them and move on. On the bright side, I am very, very close with my son and work with him on a daily basis, and he's doing fantastic. But it was it's a rough row to hoe. And unfortunately, there's an episode of Family Guy. It's a really disturbing show that offends everybody. That they go out of their way to. But they do a show on this where they want to give Stewie ADHD medication. Keep in mind, he's not quite one. But the teacher said, it's said on page 2 of the teacher handbook that if a child doesn't do exactly what he's told and sits in a seat, that he needs to be drugged. And obviously they're going for a laugh, right? This is for effect. But it's not wildly off. And then when they go to see the doctor goes, let me get this straight. This is a boy that doesn't sit still or pay attention to anybody. You know what? I've heard of it. I never thought I'd see a case in person. Right? It seems pretty flippin' obvious. Unfortunately, when you're in the middle of it, and where I was afraid of the amount of crap that I had to put in my arm every day in order to just function. And unfortunately, that was where I spent most of my time and most of my energy. Is what it is. OC pills that doctors gave out in the 90s. It's a shame the doctors don't get busted for getting lots of people hooked on them. Helsinki. I sat on Con Air. You've probably seen a movie, right, with the same name, Con Air. Okay, well, those planes don't look like anything from that movie. Con Air is a 737. It's a retired. There's 2 of them. They're both retired aircraft from the Alaska Airlines, and they're 2 fairly new planes. Before that, there was some really old stuff that was terrifying, but these are new. I flew on Con Air, and right next to me was a doctor who had gotten busted for running a pill mill, and he got 120 years. I mean, they threw away the key. However, this guy was reportedly writing 1,500 prescriptions a day. Do the math on that. How fast do you have to be writing a prescription to write 1,500 of them, right, over the course of an 8-hour day? You realize that if all you had to do was write them out, I don't think you could pull it off. Seriously. But to see all of those people and to do all of that, Rose Toes, I appreciate your honesty, right? I really appreciate your honesty. My bad parenting haunts me too. It's something that there are things that we live with, and it sucks, right? But that's one of them. Lori Hart said, my son had autism, and we fought the school not to give him serious meds. It took 2 years, but we won. You're a hero. You hear me? I mean that. I absolutely mean that. Here's for fighting for what's right? For real. Now, I'm not busting the balls of people whose kids need medication. Don't turn this into that. I'm not answering your friggin' emails, right? That's not what I'm doing. However, they try to drug everybody. It's a hell of a lot easier, isn't it? Right? If we can just get everybody doped up. I mean, how easy would class be? And don't get me seriously. I could go off on school for the next 45 minutes. What really needs to come back is this flipping industry is disgusting, and I'm talking about entertainment across the entire, right, every aspect of it. There's not a part of it. Where are you going to find a part of entertainment where you don't go, yeah, I've heard some really creepy stories. People would say country music. I tell you what, stick around. Stick around. It's coming. Sadly, it's coming. Right? But we haven't seen it quite as bad as we have seen. Soap to make a candle, I kind of doubt that. I think that those tea light candles were purchased. The little metal thing around the outside would lead me to believe that. And as a guy that spent a lot of time in prison, the ink that we make tattoos out of, right, is made out of soot, literally soot. So you have to start a fire, and you have to let the smoke come up and hit something so that soot develops on it. And you take that stuff, mix it with water, shake the hell out of it, literally for weeks, to get it to try to break down into the water. And that is what makes the tattoo ink. And I've given it a lot of try with everything that you can burn under the sun. And soap doesn't make a great candle. I promise I've tried. And particularly Dove is one of the bars that I've tried with because they sell it in the feds. We tried with everything. The bergamot hair gel works really nice. Vaseline works really nice if you're trying to make a candle. Spin a wick, right? You take cloth. You can add anything. You can take it out of a towel, out of anything. And you take the strings and spin it in one direction. Put it up, spin it the opposite. Put it up, spin it the opposite. Is how regular rope is made. You make a wick about this big, drop it down into the bottom. And that is, I used to keep that thing burning around the clock. And I would do it in a full Coca-Cola can. So I would cut the top off a Coke can and run the wick all the way through it. So all the way to the bottom. And then about every 30 or 40 minutes, you'd have to go in there and just put more crap on top of it to keep the candle going. Vaseline candles are big. They're really big. Although some people don't think that it makes a dark enough ink. This was this was pomade. That's what this was. Like I'm a Dapper Dan man. Sorry. Somebody get that, please. I don't like pop. I'm a Dapper Dan man. I came to the conclusion you shouldn't send your kids to their schools. Johnny, I got to respect that. I really do. I got to respect that. I was late diagnosed with adult ADHD. I'm on Aspen or Dexy. Okay. I don't know what Aspen is. I know what Dexy is, though. Wait a second. Yeah, okay. Medical persons to take something for my anxiety and PTSD. Nope. I use CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Well, cognitive behavioral techniques. CBT is so if you want to become a better person in a federal prison, and there aren't a lot of people that do. Honestly, my experience has been usually about 130 people every yard, right? So about 10%. I have seen this across the board. About 10% are going to sign up to go take classes for cognitive behavioral training or dialectic behavioral training, kind of depending on where you're at in the problems. This stuff actually works. This stuff does wonders for people. The Dexies, that's dextromethamphetamine, right? They'll call it Dexedrine or the name brand is Dexedrine. And I know you think, wasn't that a diet pill? Yeah, there was one by the same name, which is why it's no longer around. But Dexedrine is, if you look at the chemical name, it's dextromethamphetamine. It's a very, very professional batch of what Walter White was making. You can say it any way you want, but yeah. Oh, brother, where art thou? Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad. Such a great film. Well, aren't you just a geographical oddity? You're 2 weeks away from everywhere. Did someone say Liz Ferris? Did I see Liz here? I didn't see Liz. Hey, well, how's that? You know what, Liz? Great to see you. I love that. I really do. I love that. Yeah, it's always nice to have Liz on the boat. The internal family systems, IFS, is another phenomenal therapy modality. I'm going to be honest with you. I've never heard of that. Internal family systems, ISF. I will promise you this, though. I will be Googling this. I've never heard of it. Maybe because I guess if you have to pick one particular modality and bring it in for prisoners, cognitive behavioral therapy is probably a beautiful one. They use different terms depending on what prison you're at, but they talk about a snapshot, right? Or a visual shot of identifying exactly what's going on. It's a lot of the stuff we talk about here on the boat every day. Honestly, I mean, I think that it's probably been changed a little bit by Q and by some of the things that I've read, but it's all just a version of, when I say stuff like, how about a little perspective? Whenever something happens to you, put it on a scale of 1 to 10, right? A guy cuts in front of you at a line and it says 10 items or less, and this fool's got 12 items, and he gets in front of you and all you got is a candy bar, and you kind of want to twist his head off like a beer cap, right? That's a 1. your significant other dies, that's a 10, right? Very often, that guy getting in front of us will treat like a 10, right? But this was something that cognitive behavioral therapy, in prison especially, really beat on, was the concept of how about taking a snapshot of where you're at right now, right? And sadly, they also called it, they had what looked like a wagon wheel, and they'd have different things coming off the wagon wheel telling you all of the important stuff, right? But they called it a spoke check, which in prison has a completely different meaning. And honestly, people would ignore it because they didn't want to say they were doing a spoke check. And Liz says cognitive behavioral therapy absolutely changed her life, saved her life. And I believe that. I really do. I believe that. Christy Bell, good to see you. Columbus, Ohio. Glad you're here. Monk. It's always good when Monk's here. So listen, people, tonight I'm going to be talking about another really odd case, man, right? This is a guy who's on the run, 60 tons of blow a year that he was going down doing the manufacturing of, bringing it up, selling it here in the US and in Canada. He's wanted by the FBI. He's wanted by the OPP. Don't make any jokes. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm down with OPP. So the odd thing is this. They raided a house, right? There are 16 people on the indictment for all this blow. 16 people. They're going to RICO these 16. The head of the organization is still on the run. We're going to talk about him. Oddly, he was an Olympic athlete for Canada, snowboarder. True story. And now he is public enemy number one. And this guy has killed a lot of people. But what's odd is, outside of the 16 people, they also raided the home of a music executive in Florida that is somehow tied to this. And I swear to God, every time you take any look at anything in entertainment, find me the wholesome part where you go, oh, it's so fantastic, isn't it? Huh? What part of it? Like my son Spanx, right? When Spanx was a kid, he lived on Nickelodeon. Lived on it. And I'm running around doing the things I'm doing. It was just, that was background noise when my kid was home, right? When he was home from school, Nick was background noise. All of that background noise now, we're realizing all of those kids, the stuff that, there's no other way to say it, right? The sick bastard that filmed this stuff in almost every episode had prepubescent girls having things squirted all over their faces. That's really what happened. And this was a recurring theme that happened so much that how did somebody not go, wait a friggin' moment? Nope. Give the guy awards. Let him just keep cranking out content because Hollywood doesn't give a crap. They don't. The people write me all the time and they'll say, is the mafia still around? I mean, honestly, is it even still alive? Does the mafia still exist? Oh, it does. But it's no longer, people of Italian heritage, right? I promise you, if you don't think Bad Boy, if you don't think everything that was going on with Sean Combs was literally a crime organization, then you ain't paying attention, right? Really, really jacked up. So disgusting. My kids watched that too. Yeah, to see Britney Spears' daughter, as I was deep diving to do I did a show on this, on Nick. When I was deep diving to do the show, I lost count of how many episodes. It was Jill Anderson. It was intended to stimulate how most pornographic films end, right? Very often called the money shot. But every single episode, this guy had something exploding into the face of a prepubescent girl. And it happened so often that if you were paying any kind of attention, but I wasn't, right? I doubt you were either. This was background noise, right? It's what my son was watching. Now, did it jack up my son? No, I probably did that. But it jacked up the kids that were on those shows. I don't think anybody that gets out of that, the girl wrote a book called I'm Glad My Mother's Dead. Think about that for a second. Was that this one of the stars of iCarly, I believe was the show, but wrote a book called I'm glad my mother's dead. That's heavy, man. That really is heavy, you know? Hello, Jennifer Minton. It's a pretty ugly world we live in. A lot of you who didn't meet me because of Sean Combs met me because of Danny Masterson. All of these people hung out. Danny Masterson, P. Diddy, Ashton Kutcher. These people were all homies. This was a secret that the entire world knew about. And the boy that just fell out of that window, he is another victim of an industry that doesn't give a crap about the artists. Do you know that you've heard of death clauses? This is literally where you take out an insurance policy where you can get up to, say, 3 to 4 times, maybe 5 times what the earning potential of the artist is. So somebody like Biggie Smalls passes away. What's 5 times his potential lifetime earnings? I don't know either, but it's a staggering amount of dough, right? A staggering amount of dough. So in some cases, Jeanette McCurdy, thank you, RSM. In some cases, they start looking at these artists and going, ooh, I'd be worth a hell of a lot more money not with us than he would be with us. And of course, he passes away, his music catalog. Look what happened to Michael Jackson when he passed, right? They were talking about the guy being broke. Within a couple of months of him being dead, that catalog was worth $500 million or some such shit. It was just ridiculous, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is the industry. Lots of insurance fraud, says Johnny. You know what makes me sick about it? You know what makes me sick about it, Johnny? What makes me sick is that it was one of those, it reminds me of gangsters, right? With thoroughbred horses, right? They spend all of that cash on a horse, and the horse really isn't what they think it's going to be, and it magically doesn't make it because they've got it insured for so much dough. It's disgusting. But to do it to a human being, I don't think we really have a handle on how evil this is. Idaho Carol says, I met you because of Masterson's on Aaron's channel. A lot of fun in those days. I really did. What a tangled web of deception. All these so-called idols. And you know what's sad, Ladybug? Do you know what's sad? What's sad is every kid in America would love to be Liam, right? Every kid in America would love to have a part on a Nickelodeon show. Every kid in America would love to be a rock star. And they have no clue, right? That these people may have the worst life. I mean, honestly, not just not a great life. This is a hump life. This is slavery with a little bit of R thrown in just for safekeeping. I heard a rumor that he might be associated with the diddler somehow. Next thing we know, he's gone. Do the authorities know for sure there were substances in his body? It all just is so strange. Now, I'll tell you what. If we want to be honest, I have not seen that yet. Now, the postmortem will be done. He has been super open and honest about his drug habit. If there's not drugs in his system, I think we got a real issue, especially because what they did say, the toxicology always comes later. You know what I mean? The toxicology is always later. They're going to do that gas spectral, whatever. What they did know was he didn't try to break his fall in any way. There were no what they call defensive wounds. And people who unalive themselves by hopping off of things have defensive wounds, unless you're unconscious, right? Now, a person could argue that on enough clonazepam and a bottle of booze, right? There was a bottle of whiskey that went over with him, allegedly. Now, is that a possibility that could have you so wasted that you wouldn't try to break your fall? Possibly. But if somebody threw you over the edge, you wouldn't try to break your fall either, right? I'm not trying to start conspiracies of any kind. I'm not. But you know something? Thank you, Karen Hughes. Thank you. I have the feeling, hate me if you'd like, I have the feeling that the people that get involved in this industry do it because they'd like to hang out with people like Liam, especially when he's young. Britney's autopsy results were almost identical to Kim Porter's. says Johnny had chased the heat. And you know what? There's a lot of truth to that. They had very, very similar autopsy reports. They died of very similar stuff that just, I mean, in this day and age, there's really, there's so much smoke around all of this crap, right? There is so much smoke around all of this crap that there's got to be fire. I'm sorry. There's got to be. There really has. They both had pneumonia. They did. In one case, it was described as lobar pneumonia, and in another case, it was described as something else. But they both died of very similar causes. Their autopsies looked very, very similar. And you know what? There was obviously there's a lot of substances in both cases, but you keep finding the same scumbags around a lot of situations that make you go, wait a second. Their actor's day starts at 4 a.m., maybe ends at 8 or 9 p.m. I'll keep my dishwashing, Jill Anderson. Well, you know, let me say this. Honestly, most kids, I think, I don't remember, it was last year or the year before, but we did a show about this. You ask high school seniors what they want to be, right? And actually, you know what they say now? They'd like to be an influencer. They want to be a TikToker, right? And again, it's another one of those things that I'll keep my dishwashing. I think that a lot of people don't realize exactly what you're signing up for, right? It's and I, you know, we do this on a microcosm. I can't imagine what people like what Liam and the rest of the boys there went through, right? Run some old video. Look at those cats when they went to New York. I mean, the men and women acted like they were the Beatles. And I guess for this generation, they probably were, right? I don't know how I would cope with that. I really don't know how I would cope with that. It would be a very very serious problem, I think. It would drive me insane. The pneumonia was a system of the toxic infection that developed in the body. My opinion, of course. Sensational cinema. Well said. And you know what? Opinions are great. I think that they were very good at what they tried to do, right? Johnny says, they won't tell us they covered it up. How many other times has it happened? Well, I'll tell you something. If you know anything about the substances these guys were playing with, right? If you know anything about the substances these guys were playing with, the people who went to hospitals, the people that took the time and said, I'm going to go file a report. Something happened to me last night at that party, and it ain't right? And overcame the fear of who this guy is, because this is like turning in The Godfather. I think everybody in that industry knew that this guy had people off. That's my opinion. But for those who were brave enough to say, I'm going to go and I'm going to go to a hospital, I'm going to report this, they were testing out for Trank. Right? Trank was being found in these people's systems. Now, that is a mixture of a very strong opiate, right? And it'll be hard to tell what opiate, because usually by the time these people report it, 6 hours has gone by and your body's just going to take that and turn it into morphine, right? It'll take damn near anything and turn it into morphine. That's how we process it out. That's a rough equation, but that's basically what happens. A rough description, rather. But when you start bringing in stuff like heavy opiate and you mix it with a horse tranquilizer they call xylazine, right? That combo is deadly already. Now we know on top of that, they're squirting around all of this stuff that's got gamma hydroxybutyric acid in it, right? And everyone at the party's drinking. This is like, is there a respiratory depressant that I haven't named we could try to get into these people's systems? There's no chance somebody didn't get unalived. If you do this, you're drugging everybody in sight. Allegedly, everybody's getting drugged. If you did that for 3 decades, some people wouldn't come out of it alive. It doesn't pass the smell test. That after all of these friggin' parties, right? All of these freak offs. Have you seen the images of the little capsules? I mean, the little containers that they carried their, the poison in. They show these little things that they use to spike the drinks. Good God in heaven, man. Good God in heaven. Christianities, really appreciate this, Tommy. Great chat all. You know what? Thank you for being here. You make the boat better. You really do. And thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. Tommy, haven't a lot of people stopped doing drugs since fent is in everything? Boy, that would be lovely to think about, but it's not bearing out. Now, I'm not telling you that there are not some people out there that are pretty damn smart who look at this and go, I'm not going to play in this game. I'm not going to do that. But the people who are addicted to opioids and have been addicted to opioids are going to continue to get opioids until they get locked up, right? Or something so huge intervenes. And for a lot of people, like I work with people every day trying to help people get off of this crap. And they're still, they told us recently, I don't know if nobody watches a show I do on fent. And it's not your fault. They don't push it. Right? If I talk about Diddy, I get 10,000 views. If I talk about the number one cause of death in this country being fentanyl, I get 150 views, which is fine. But make no mistake, they lied to you about the deaths going down. Remember that? It's not by much. It's only 4,000, but it was good news. Well, it went up by 4,000. They lied to us. 3,000 and change is what it went up by. The deaths that ended in 2023 have gone up by 110,000, right? The previous one was 107. So don't let them lie to you. You can look it up. It doesn't take all you have to do is say, whenever you hear someone on the news say, hey, good news, overdose deaths are down. Take the time to just go ahead and ask Google if that's the truth, right? Take the time to do a little research on what the last statistics were. 110,000 deaths. Number one cause of death between the ages of 18 and 55 in the good old US of A is overdose. Tony Hooter, great to see you. I love Tony Hooter. You know what? It's a good chat. It's a good crew. Kristen Melinda, how are you? Good to see you. So what we were talking about, some of you just got here. I'm going to show you something real quick, right? I'm going to knock this out real quick. It's probably not seen me do something like this on the boat because I don't do it very often, right? Probably because I'm an idiot. But check this out. This is what the desk at the hotel room showed. We got tin foil over here with black marks on it. Now, I'll be honest with you. If that was an opioid, they don't normally let it burn in one spot. Normally what you do is you light that foil and then you tip it and that black stuff turns into a puddle and runs down. And as it hits other parts of the foil it hasn't touched yet, that's a different temperature, all that stuff gases up and smokes. Okay. But it's very rare that you would see it in one spot. This is again why I think this was probably a bootleg way of trying to do, a version of crack, something that he mixed some version of it. Because this thing right here, that is a tinfoil tube that he wrapped around either a pen or a pencil or something along those lines. A lot of us have done that in the course of our lives. These, to me, look like bindles, do they not? It's got a little tie there at the top. It looks kind of plastic. A lot of these things to me, these little explosions that you see like this, I have a feeling this guy bought a bunch of street dope. And as people have mentioned here already, believe it or not, the street dope down in Argentina isn't great, apparently. Had about 3 different people say that. And I find that, again, I think the reason for that is probably because that industry is dying. I'm sorry, but this substance, you can buy it cheaper, made fake in China, than you can ever get it from South America. And they're going to go for the cheapest that they can possibly get. Always and forever. Over here is the champagne the champagne glass. There was another one on the floor by the television, which I find kind of odd too, right? He was alone in the room. This whole thing, there are going to be conspiracy theories that come out of this. And do you know why? Because people in the music industry always seem to make a crap load of money when somebody famous dies. Sorry, right? But these death clauses, right? These are real. This is something that is continuing to happen. So yes, in answer to your question, no, man, people are still doing dope. They're still doing lots of dope. What they're doing is dope made in labs. They're no longer It's an issue, regardless of whether you're buying tar, right, which is H, or you're buying the white, right, the cocaine, right? Regardless of which one you're buying, they require massive fields to make. You understand? If you're growing poppies, you're slicing the bulbs, then you got to go back and scrape all that crap off, and they do it in, I'm talking about fields as far as the eye can see of poppies. This isn't something you're gonna set up a hydroponic thing in your closet, right, and crank out some tar or some blow. This requires massive amounts of coca leaves or massive amounts of poppy bulbs. Well, if you can make the same thing in a lab, then you can do it for a fifth of the price and know that you're not going to get screwed over by any of the by Mother Nature or by somebody trying to pick off your load while you're coming up. Honestly, they like transporting coca leaves. They used to kill each other over that stuff, right? Within their countries fighting over it because it was the only cash crop. Well, now guess what? Those cash crops aren't as popular as they used to be. Cost way too much money to make it. The Dove soapbox, I think you're probably right. I do think that the soapbox was a way to hide the dope. In prison, we very often hide stuff in soap, right? Soap boxes. It's pretty popular place to hide stuff. That would be my guess, is that it was inside that, and then he had that maybe in his luggage or whatever. But yeah, that would be my guess as well. Wow, Christy, you were about to stream the Boone trial and you came over here. I am absolutely touched. To all of the true crime fans out there, I appreciate the hell out of you being here. I do know that the suitcase murder trial is impaneled and starting. And you know what, man? I want to see it too. I won't lie to you. I'm going to be watching it. And I probably will be commenting on it here in the next little bit. But I promise you, don't miss the show that I do tonight. I don't know that anyone else is talking about this, but you need to hear this case because it's absolutely mind-bending. It really is. It's mind-bending. And I am not done talking about our friend Liam. I'm not. I think that this entertainment industry, all of the scum that seem to be falling out of the woodwork, right? I think this is something that we got to keep screaming about. I think this is something that when people go, who cares? Right? Maybe explain to them that, you know what? If you don't care, it's famous stuff, right? It's famous stuff. I didn't talk when they came for the rock stars because I wasn't a rock star. These people are being abused in ways that you can't imagine, right? Go watch some videos of Justin Bieber as a kid. Go watch some videos of Usher as a kid, right? And then go see how many videos are up on the big red button, allegedly talking about what P. Diddy did to these guys when they were babies, when they were little boys. Who cares? If you don't, I'm not sure I want to hang out with you. If this doesn't bother you at a really deep level, I don't think I want to know you. Aaron Carter, River Phoenix. There's more victims, right? The River Phoenix case. Oh man, I can't. I've said this before. I'm afraid to talk about that case. But I sat down with two people once. I'm afraid to talk about the River Phoenix case. I really am. But I don't buy how that went down. I talked to some people who knew him really well who just said, no, you don't understand. That part of his life was done. Right? He was so, what was it? Alika's Attic, the band that it was all about music. He was so fired up. He was so happy, but he wasn't doing any of that crap. If you look at history, it's the same people that controlled the drug industry 200 years ago that still control it now. East India Company and other blue blood scum. Well, I'll tell you something. Our government, the comeback king, Jeremy Shelton. I'm tempted to go put that on just for laughs. Hey, you know something, people? These are big name scumbags, right? The sad truth is that this really is a cabal. This really is a cabal. And if the things that people are saying sound insane, it's a pretty insane industry. A lot of really insane crap going on because what they've been doing since the industry was invented is insane. There's nobody that doesn't, right? Nobody doesn't now know and believe and accept the fact that Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz was getting her sleeve rolled up and getting hit with H so she could go out and skip down the yellow brick road. And we haven't fixed it since, right? Since movies became talkies, women have been doing things to get into films that they shouldn't have to. This has been going on since the dawn of man. And apparently in the music industry, it happens to boys as well. And kids, right? It seems equal opportunity equal opportunity R-ing that goes on around that, right? Men, women, and children, unfortunately. Who cares? I care. I think a lot of other people do too, right? Rest in peace, Liam. Thank you. That's a pretty good one to end to. All right, people. I'm Tommy. I'm going to catch you on the next one. It's going to be about 7 tonight, and I promise you don't want to miss it. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. Have a great one.